Well, hey there, and welcome to yet another one of my cheesy YouTube videos. On this video, we are going to change out fifth gear in this 02J Volkswagen transmission that's attached to my TDI engine as we get it ready to stab into the Mark I Rabbit pickup truck. Just a little note that we're waiting on metal to continue on with the 74 Beetle repairs. So be patient and we'll be getting on that in a couple more videos. So let's get started. I may look like I woke up in a gutter, but when it comes to mechanicking, I know when something needs to be clean. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to take one of them wire toothbrushes and I'm going to clean up around the edge of this cover that needs to come off. And I got a little trash can sitting down here, but I got a bucket to capture what oil may fall out. Got that damn wire toothbrush out yesterday. I don't know where the hell I put it. Oh well, I'm gonna use this pipe cleaning brush and just kind of brush around the edges. Get the heavy stuff off. It's a brake clean and flush it around the edges. When I was in business, I used brake clean religiously. Cleanliness is so important. So important. Anytime you're getting into a gearbox or messing with lubrication and gears and bearings. All right. 11mm socket. Now, I've been turning wrenches for 40-something years. I think this is the first time I used an 11mm. I believe that's the same as the 7/16. Oh, crap. I thought I saw it. Ta-da! This is the shift fork assembly. There's 1, 2, 3 bolts that got to come out to take that off. So we need to get these bolts out first. Then there's 2 big bolts in between each gear. You got 2 gears. You got a driving gear and a driven gear. We're going to switch this out with a 0.658 overdrive, which will reduce our RPMs. To take these 2 bolts out, we need a triple square 8mm tool. It's built like a Torx bit, but it's got 12 points instead of 6, as opposed to a Torx bit, which is 6 points. The next thing I need to undo is this one right here that holds it to the mechanism for shifting. Okay, it's busted loose. This one is a T40 that I use for this bolt right here. These 2 bolts are T60s. Now, I need to make sure I don't lose any parts into my trash can. So I got my little drain pan underneath there. Set that aside. This little piece came off. This cutout slides into this shift fork right here. This came out with it. Got a curved side, which goes in and cradles in the transmission case. The flat side, what the bolt goes up against. Long-winded, that's good. A lot of threads inside that aluminum housing. Help keep from busting it. This is the second one. I'm actually going to set this on the table in a different place from the first one to kind of hopefully remind me that that was the top one. And here's my shift fork. I want to examine the shift fork for where it slides in this collar. Best I can tell, it's in pretty good shape. I'm going to go ahead and pull this spring off. It's not a snap ring, it's a spring. And it holds these shift dogs in place. As I'm pulling out on the outer collar, I'm kind of working the shift dogs, and as I put pressure on it, I could feel it snap in, and I think the shift collar is about to come out and the shift dogs are going to fall loose. Almost. A little bit more. Should come right on. It's off. There's 3 same space grooves here, the smaller ones, and that's what the shift dogs fit in. The grooves are about the width of the shift dog. Shift collar has a flat side, goes to the outside. It has a step, goes to the inside. 3 of the teeth in the shift collar are made to accommodate the shift dog. We'll have to play with that, going back together with it. See if I get myself all confused. Next, I gotta bust these rascals loose. This one's coming loose all right. This one, rolling the whole transmission. What I can do is I can manage to put this sucker in more than one gear, which will lock the transmission up. See that? By the way, you can do this job with it in the vehicle. Shoulder bolt, big washer. Here's a story on brake clean, not necessarily this brand. I use brake clean religiously to clean things, especially since most of my work was done in the field. I didn't have a parts washer with me. Customers would sometimes get mad. How come you put a case of brake clean on my repair job when all you were doing was fixing a hydraulic pump? Well, that's how I clean things. But brake clean is most of the time flammable. And I learned the hard way that the residue left behind by the brake clean can be flammable. It was a cold, dry winter day, one of them kind of days where you touch a metal table and you get a static spark going to you. I had brake clean on my hands that had evaporated. I touched a metal table and static electricity created a spark and my hands caught on fire. It's out of 40 years of mechanicking, or probably 30 years at that time. I'd never had a problem like that. But all I had to do was go like this and the fire went out. So, but just warning you that brake clean is flammable. And they say you need to apply heat to these gears to get to expand and slide off that shaft. One of the guys on one of the videos using an air chisel, and he puts on a socket that just fits on, this is the shaft, just fits over the shaft, puts outward pressure on the gears with a lady's foot, pry bar, and he hammers on this shaft and the gear will walk off. I kind of don't like that. Because this shaft runs through the transmission and it's more than just this gear on it, and I just don't like that. If I could apply a little bit of heat, I'm just going to use a propane torch just around the edge here and try to get this to slide off. And then I got to do the same with this little gear. I'm just heating the gear up. Using propane, I really don't want to use acetylene. Acetylene gets it really hot real fast. I don't really use propane because I'm almost never successful using it. Heating gears is not a good idea. And I'm not actually heating the gear, I'm heating the synchronizer, which probably isn't a good idea either. I don't think putting a impact driver on there or air chisel and hammering that shaft is good either. Warm, but it's not hot. Oh, it'd be sweet if it would slide off now. I'm trying to, right now I'm just trying to pry on the synchronizer, the outside steel piece, not the, not budging. I'm not rushing. I might go see if I got a puller that fit on this. And I don't want to cook the bearing that's behind this gear back here. I got a 2-job puller. I ground down on the puller a little bit so there's clearance to go behind 5th gear. Got my puller attached. My puller is pushing into an old socket, and the sockets allow me to keep away from the hole where the bolt goes in so I don't screw that up. I'm going to stick my impact on here and hopefully the gear will come off. Everything is cooled down, so the heat had no play in this coming apart. So obviously the trick is to use, for me, I think using the puller was a good idea, even if it meant going out and buying a new puller. And here's the assembly. This gear will be getting changed out. I gotta do the same thing to this other gear. Holy shit, it's loose on the shaft. Yep, there it goes. This gear popped right off. I've been told this gear is the hardest one to get off, but it slid right off. Thank goodness. This is the new gear. It is not going to slide right in. Okay. Now, this is not a job for the impact. I am drawing it in with the ratchet. I'm not pushing real hard. Let me go ahead and pull it back apart. I went ahead and put my washer on. I don't think I'd be afraid to put the impact on. Maybe, maybe not. Keep in mind, this is where if you do something wrong, you may not realize it until a year down the road, 5th gear goes out, or something like that happens. This is where paying attention to detail matters. That's what I'm trying to say. The fight here should only be between my bolt, my gear, and my shaft. It's all happening right here. I am not forcing my shaft into something further in the transmission because the struggles between the shoulder of this bolt, this gear, and the shaft. It's all happening right here. So I don't have to worry that I'm tearing something up inside the transmission. If I was to be driving this gear on with a piece of pipe, then I got to worry about everything that shaft comes in contact with inside that transmission because I'll be driving the whole assembly on. Okay. It's bottomed out. Now, I'm not going to put this in yet. Before I do, I'm going to flush that hole out with brake clean, and I'm going to flush this bolt out off with brake clean. and I'm going to get all the oil off of here. Then I'm going to put a drop of Loctite on, and then I'll go in and torque her down. This is my new gear assembly. It's going to ride in right there. We need the bearing. It looks good. So the bearing goes in the gear, and the gear sits up on here. This gear free spins. The shaft just free spins underneath this gear until the synchronizer assembly locks in. This is a collar off the synchronizer. One of the things you might want to check is the little ribs inside here aren't rubbed smooth to where it's an evidence that it's wore out. And look the rest of it over for just general deformities. That rides on there. This spring was still in it, which is a sister spring for that first spring I took out, which may need to be taken off and reassembled before we go back together with it. Okay, let's talk about the synchronizer. It's an assembly of parts, including the brass ring that I put on there. This outer collar, like I mentioned originally, it's got this step on this side. This side is flat. This step goes inward. This shoulder on this side of this gear goes inward. You can see the mark where that washer sat. Okay, the new gear, this is a synchronizer collar. What happens is this gear is free spinning on the shaft. The hub of the synchronizer is splined to the shaft. So the hub is mechanically attached to it. When you shift this collar, ultimately, these gears on the inside of this collar are going to engage the gears that are machined onto fifth gear. And as it's on its way there, it's going to engage the same gears, same type of gears on the brass ring. It's going to engage them first. And as it keeps applying pressure moving into the other gear, that brass ring is going to draw tight onto this machine surface of fifth gear. And that's what prevents it from grinding. That's what slows the gear down, meshes it all up, and then they snap in together. And that is how that works. That's typical synchronizer on everything. And this gear, which is called the driving gear, this big gear is the driving gear, because once it's locked into the main shaft, the driving gear is spinning the driven gear, and this is the driven gear. That's what that terminology means. This hub, like I mentioned, has got 3 small slots for the shift dogs. It's got 3 wider slots, pardon me, and they're going to line up with these nubs right here on the brass collar. I'm just taking my time. I'm actually studying it closely as I go. Lay your synchronizer on a flat surface with the collar on the synchronizer. Take your dogs, drop them in the appropriate holes with the flat edge going towards the inside, which in this case is down. Got one more. Where is it? Here it is. Take your circlip spring, take the little curved bent piece, Started on the edge of one of the dogs. Compress it. Now they're held in place. Flip it over. I'm just working it in. This is really easy doing it this way. Now my synchronizer is together. It's got the clip on, and I'm able to look at everything and verify that everything's right before I move on. Now this needs to go on with this side facing inward. The synchronizer has these bumps, 3 bumps on the outside, and they're going to line up with the notches. There's 3 large cuts out. There are 3 large cutouts in here just opposite from the 3 cutouts for the dogs. Okay, I can see the notches. It's in where it belongs. And you make sure that sucker stays. Now, everybody else will spin these things on and get them started and say, oh, that's perfect. Not me. I'm gonna take a little wooden little ball peen. I'm gonna hold this brass collar, synchronizer collar in place. I'm not forcing the gear, giving it love taps. And she's moving, so I'm not going to get excited about it. Yeah, she's going right on in. If I wasn't holding the synchronizer, it would shoot off the back and would not be timed properly. And I am driving the whole shaft in the transmission, so I don't want to be wailing away at it. And I could use the bolt to draw it in. Probably what I should be doing, but it's going in so easy this way. All right, let me go ahead and put the wheel. Yeah. Drawing it in this way. All right, I just felt it bottom out. The little gear has a new washer because it's a smaller diameter than the original washer because the gear is smaller. Make sure your washers are up on your shoulder of your shoulder bolt. Before I put this bolt in, or either any of these bolts in, I need to take some brake cleaner. I need to flush. Be smarter than me, wear safety glasses. And flush out the hole. That should get rid of the oil residue. I'm going to put a drop of red Loctite on the threads. Just a drop. I know red Loctite's permanent, but I've always been able to get it back apart. If nothing else, apply just a teeny bit of heat to it. It has always been successful for me. Now I'm supposed to torque that to 59 foot-pounds. I am going to stick this screwdriver in between these gears. Let's see if this works. All right, it's about 59. I'll leave it. Sorry, that was more than a drop, but it wasn't meant to be. And I'm putting the new washer on it for the small gear. Come on, damn it. Click. My synchronizer brass ring back behind there moves freely. It's not spinning around because the notches are inside the deals like I told you to, but it's not in a bind. Next will be my shift fork again. Rumor goes I never needed to take this off. Depending on what videos you see on YouTube will depend on just how much they make you do something. You could have pulled the shift fork free of the ring by pushing it this way, and it would come out of this slot and you would never had to undo this. That just means we got to make sure it all lines back up properly in its proper position. These are supposed to be 18 foot-pounds. Okay, on this shift fork adjustment, it's in neutral, it's fifth gear is not engaged, and everything's loose. What's important, in my opinion, in just transmissions in general, that these pieces that slide into the synchronizer collar shouldn't be having pressure on them. So this all should spin. If it's got pressure on it, it's going to wear. And as far as I'm concerned, from my experience, that holds true for when it's engaged also. To engage this, I need to pull up on the lever and turn it. Now it's engaged. I'm able to wiggle it. That and the bottom one. I don't know if you ever heard, you know, the old 4-speed transmissions, they would tell you, don't drive around resting your hand on the shift lever. Because what you're doing is you're keeping pressure on these little slides, or whatever you want to call them. It means that while this ring's turning, while you're going down the road, you're wearing on it prematurely. I'm going to leave this just like it is. I think it's pretty good. So I've got everything tightened down, 18 foot-pounds and then 59 foot-pounds. I used red Loctite on these after I cleaned them with brake clean and got all the residue off. And I'm going to put this cover on, and you don't need to watch me do that. Don't over torque gaskets for this is like a valve cover. It's that stamped metal. And you don't want to ever over torque them, because all you're doing is bending the metal and creating a spot where there's not as much pressure between the bolts and making a risk of leak. There's a fill hole right here to top it off, and I may or may not top it off right now. I lost very little fluid. I guess that's the way it's sitting on the table. And once I get in the car and I service this engine, once it's ready to go on the road, I'll probably change the tranny oil out, but I can't really do that now because I can't get to the lower bolts. Thank you for watching my video. Please hit the like button, any other buttons you're supposed to hit. I'm really no expert on YouTube. And subscribe to my channel, and I'll keep producing videos, and hopefully I'll produce videos that can help you out. Remember, if you love life and learning new things, go aimless.com.